Life at last, and I want to walk you through probably the biggest day we've had this year. We get the Fed deciding interest rates today. Jerome Powell giving a press conference after that. We have massive, massive tech earnings, the big tech guys tonight. We've got Tesla coming up. And all of that baked together with what Trump is doing, means the markets are on what? Edge of their seat, I'd say. Pre-market not looking particularly glorious. Futures pretty flat, a little bit on the red side. But there is an opportunity if you understand this. So I want to walk you through the following. I want you to understand why the Fed isn't going to cut rates today. I want you to understand what the DeepSeek stuff really means, because yes, that is still a big story out there. I want you to understand what's happening with inflation and what's happening with the big tech stocks, and then I'll take your questions. Does that sound like a lot to cover? I think it sounds rather like a lot to cover. We are muted. Seriously? Are we really muted? Someone say that? You can't hear me? No. We're not muted. But it did work. Right, so here we go. And by the way, those ads, you saw me go live on Twitter instead. Yeah, that was the wrong bloody stream. So, tech sometimes does funny things with us in the mornings. So this here is an important chart, because this is what's preventing, sounds okay, thanks guys. This here is what's preventing the Fed from cutting interest rates today. This is the data from Goldman Sachs, the bankers with a big heart who love and care about us so very deeply. And they're basically saying, this is inflation, right? This is here the inflation. They're basically saying inflation is going to come down unless we get the sort of 10% tariffs across the board, which Trump is talking about. In which case, inflation will actually pick up and then come down again. Because inflation is, because of tariffs, is a temporary thing. It's transitory, to use that word Jerome Powell loves so much, because basically what it means is, say you're now paying $1 for something foreign, right? And then he puts 10% tariffs on it, and then it goes to $1.10. So you have in year one, in theory, 10% inflation on that, right? But in year two, it still costs you $1.10. So your inflation is now what? 0. That's how inflation works. It doesn't go back. It doesn't get cheaper again, right? So it's a temporary thing. So the Fed doesn't have to raise interest rates because of it, but it'll probably stop them from, okay, give the man a coffee. I'm not showing you the chart. Oh dear, it's one of those mornings, is it? So basically, say your stuff goes from $1 to $1.10, goes up 10% in price, but the next year stays at $1.10, it's still 0. In fact, it might actually go down a little bit because maybe domestic manufacturing gets a little bit cheaper and so on, right? Electrolytes, that's probably a good idea, right? Let's put some of those on. That's usually how we get my brain to function. Seriously, it works. I had a long lunch today, that might explain it, and Japanese for dinner, because if you hadn't noticed, I'm about 13 hours ahead of you guys on the East Coast. So, all because it's not allowed to slurp with electrolytes. You see what you did there? You see what you did by stopping me from slurping? So the Fed's going to say there is uncertainty around federal government policy. Therefore, we're going to wait and see. That's one of the reasons they're not going to cut today. The market isn't going to love that. And if you look at the policy outlook here, and again, I got that data from every single Fed Muppet who's spoken in the last month or so, they are basically all saying, we don't need to do anything. That's essentially what they're all saying. I'm not going to run you through every single one of these quotes. If you want to read them, just take a screenshot. But I don't think it's really essential. I always think, focus on the essential, but feel free to take a screenshot of this if you want to read it. Not being as polite in Japan, is it? I was literally just at a Japanese, sitting at the sushi counter with 3 Japanese chaps next to me and the Japanese chef. It was really weird, being transported into Japan. It was very, very funny. And guess what they were talking about? Elon Musk, the whole thing. It was like Japanese, and then Elon Musk. I was like, it's very funny. So he's a subject all around us. Now, why am I throwing in this random thing here? What the heck is this? This is ASML. And I'm going to throw you a few bits of data here that you need to understand the bigger picture that's forming today in the market, because this feeds into the DeepSeek disaster that we got yesterday or the day before. ASML, the guys who make the machines to make the chips, reported tremendous earnings, really fantastic numbers. And Goldman Sachs, the bankers who donate all their spare funds to fluffy kitten sanctuaries, they say the stock should go up 56%, which is pretty significant, right? So they're loving it. And essentially ASML said, if AI gets cheaper, more people will run it, therefore they'll need more chips. An interesting way of looking at it. They might well have a point, that adoption accelerates. Now, their sales, of course, came out before DeepSeek. Right? Just a little bit of a warning there. But yeah, I think the DeepSeek stuff is totally exaggerated. That's just my view. I think yes, they're probably doing it a little bit more efficiently. OpenAI is saying that they used OpenAI to train, which is interesting. That they borrowed, their GPUs. So I think that it's definitely an overblown story and therefore definitely an opportunity here. But look at their margins, right? 51% gross margins. Their income is 30% higher. Their cash is sitting at 12.7 billion. They sold more units than we expected. It's just, pretty good. Pretty good. And China is already not that relevant to them, which is also kind of positive there. So I think it's totally overblown. Now, inflation. The real inflation underneath it is actually coming down pretty significantly. So I don't think the inflation thing is a problem, but I still think the Fed isn't going to give us the rate cap we want. They're going to wait. And I think they're going to make this last stand of we really are independent from Trump, and therefore they're not going to do it. I think they're almost trying to defy him. I think it's silly politics, as it usually is. And here I get to the DeepSeek story. This is Morgan Stanley, and I think they put it quite nicely. They're saying DeepSeek caused an overreaction in US stocks with exposure to AI. Key points. US data center pipeline suggests the vast majority of known pipeline is AI inference and non-AI use cases rather than IT training. So even if AI training, so if training the new AI model gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, that's actually a very small amount of the AI spend. Because it's only the AI spend from like OpenAI, kind of making the new ones rather than providing data compute services for their customers. And they say the cost of compute will fall by 90% over the next 6 years, which means underlying demand for AI will rise as AI adoption grows, because very few people are using AI in terms of large companies. They still think there's going to be considerable AI infrastructure spend in the US, and they also think US power demand growth comes from non-AI drivers, onshoring of manufacturing, just general electrification, EVs, etc. So the whole kind of story we've been talking about, energy, infrastructure, still stands. That's their view on it, and I think they're largely right on that. Now, what about the market then? Which is looking, I'll show you how the market's looking. This is yesterday, right? Which was pretty decent, right? 9% bounce in Nvidia. We're pretty happy with that. But pre-market, yeah, right? Not looking amazing. Nvidia down again a little bit. Apple down a little bit. Meta, Google flat. Amazon flat. Microsoft flat. Tesla flat. So no real oomph there because everybody is waiting for what? The big earnings. And Jerome, the magnificent Powell speaking today. Palantir down 0.6%. So no big moves, but also not amazing. T-Mobile is up. Is that to do with the Starlink deal? That's also an Apple thing, which I'll get to in just a second, because I think that's also important to understand. But if you want to understand where the market gets more volatile, so where I would get worried, a little bit teeny worried, this is the S&P 500. Below 6,000 here. See all that options volume here at 6,000. This is a screenshot from Trade Vision, which is a software that we built. If you want to get your pause on that, go where? There it is. There we go. Felix.Prehn/Trade Vision, and you get yourself a free trial. And you drop below 6,000 points, bad things happen. Yeah, bad things happen. So be a little bit worried around that level. That's meant to be a slightly worried chap. We move back above 6,100, where there is quite a lot of volume here. You move it back above that and things start to get much better. And above 6,200, you've got a really, really, really happy market. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. Below 6,000, I might hold off on buying the ETFs or the index. Individual stocks is always a different story. Is there a way to understand the strength of support and resistance, says Christopher? Okay, for the lines we give you, support and resistance, generally speaking, we only give it to you on pretty high volume stocks. Looking at the overall volume of options on that stock would be the way I would do it. I mean, you could do that on the screen that we have. You could otherwise literally hover these little bars there, and they'll tell you what the open interest is. That gives you a bit of an idea. But on the S&P, SPX, there's pretty decent volume. That's just the way it works. Okay, does that make sense to anyone? If that makes some sense to you, at least some sense to you, put a 1 in the chat. I don't expect it to make 100% sense to you, but some sense to you. Put a 1 in the chat. And if you are going to get yourself the free trial to Trade Vision, put a TV in the chat. Okay, I want to see that. TV, felixprehn.org/Trade Vision. Let's see who's going to get some amazing data to make yourself smarter. Now, the second thing you can also do, if you want to actually understand what you do with all this data, to see what I trade, to see what I buy, what I sell, to see how I learn by literally talking to my mentors one-on-one in Zoom calls directly, and learn from us and learn the structure that I learned, then you can hop on a call with us if you like. It's completely free. It's zero pressure. We just have a nice chat with you. You can ask us all the questions you ever wanted to about mentoring. Is it the right thing for you? Is it the right fit for you? And we actually got something very, very cool approved today, which we've been working on for quite a while. A lot of people come to us and say, I'd love to do this. I'd love to learn with you, but I don't want to sell any of my stocks. I want to keep them invested. So we've actually partnered up with a firm. We're doing a trial with them where we're going to get 50 people, 0% financing, potentially 0% financing. I believe you need to have a credit score of around 650 for that to work. So if that's something that might affect you, then literally hop on a call with us, felixprehn.org/freedom, and just walk you through it, and we'll chat you through it. Absolutely zero commitment required, except for one thing. I'd ask that you are somebody who wants to make your life better. Like literally just say, I want my life to be better. Right? If that's you, hop on a call with us, talk to us. If that's not you, if you're just like, no, I don't want life to be better, then please don't talk to us because we can't help you in that case. So Scott, subscribe to News Daily. Brilliant. MSVP, Elizabeth, Michael just booked a call. Amazing, Michael. Let me know how that goes. Mayetta, I'm Andy, Mickey, Margaret, Niels, you guys already using Trade Vision there. Quite a lot of you. Janine, Norman, Adris. Okay, that's very cool to see. John, 95 era driver. Okay, some of our regulars. Love you for that. And feel free to always give us feedback, right? That's literally how we build it. Pretty much every single feature in there comes from an inspiration from one of the users. You're just saying, hey, could you do this? Could you do that? So keep telling us what to do, and that way we'll keep making it better to fit so it fits you and it works for you. Now, KK thinks I'm going to gather all your personal info for my benefit. Yes, I'd love to know what you had for breakfast as well, KK, and then I will try and sell that information to the highest bidder. I don't really understand this thing about, giving somebody your email address. I mean, make a specific email address for you for signing up to things. We don't sell your data, my friend. We never have. We never will. So. Yeah, but obviously I get it. It's a thing in Europe particularly. Some people have real hang-ups about that. They're sort of like, I'm not going to learn. I'm not going to get better in life because I don't want to give somebody my email address. It's like, okay, I can't help you in that case. I just can't. There's nothing I can do. Now, why am I showing you a picture of the Donald with this magnificent head of hair? And a glowing skin color that I've never seen on a man before. This is it. Trump is offering all 2 million federal workers, 2 million people working for the federal government. 2 million people, right? Think about how many people are in the armed forces and 2 million people working in the federal government, saying basically either have a choice. Either you come back to the office, 9 to 5, right? Back to office, sit in your cubicle, or you quit and we'll pay you 8 months of salary. So 8 months monkey money and you quit. And they're thinking they might save $100 billion from this. That's pretty crazy, right? Now, if that doesn't work, the next thing to do will be to move all departments to Utah. I don't know. I haven't been to Utah. I'm sure it's amazing, so I don't mean to malign Utah, but you know what I mean. Say your office is presently in Washington, D.C., maybe moving to Utah is not that appealing because, you know, your family doesn't want to move or whatever. And that's usually how you get rid of people. That's what large companies do. They move headquarters around the country, and that way you get rid of people because sacking them is pretty difficult. So Chris, my friend, we're not targeting people who need to take credit out for training. Honestly, if that's somebody who comes to us, we will say, please don't, get some money. And we do that quite regularly. But there's some people who come to us and say, look, I've got my money invested in these stocks and I really don't want to sell them because I think the market's going to do really well this year. And I totally get that. In which case, if you get 0% financing and it literally doesn't cost you anything at all, then that could be quite an interesting deal. For some, I'm not saying it's for everybody. I'm not saying debt is good or any of that, but I can see the use case. Initially, my reaction was like yours. I was like, I don't think we should do that because we don't want to attract that kind of person. But we have a pretty clear policy on that, right? Utah is stunningly beautiful. I'm sure it is. Utah is awesome. I'm sure it is. I'd love to honestly visit it. Go hiking. It's probably pretty good there, right? But, you know, field offices in Alaska, precisely. That's a sort of, maybe that's a better example, right? Move the Inland Revenue Department to Alaska. See how many people will quit. Or offer them 8 months salary. I think that'd be a good move too, and just replace them with Palantir. So he's doing that. And why is that important? Because what causes inflation? What causes inflation? Anybody, any suggestions? Put them in the chat. What do you think causes inflation? Utah bike trails are fantastic. Cool. We'll have to check that out. John, using my other first name. You're very welcome to do that, John. People often think that. They think it unsettles me if you call me Nicholas. My full name is Nicholas Felix Prehn. I prefer the Felix to the Nicholas. But some people think, oh, if I call it Nicholas, then get all like weird and antsy about it. Really odd, isn't it? What some people put out there. Anyway, government printing money. Yeah, I think you guys, George, Faber, and Jinx, and so on, you guys are pretty much spot on. Government spending is inflationary. So less government spending means what? Less debt, which means lower interest rates. Basically, less government spending lowers interest rates and lowers inflation. So it's a very, very good thing to slim the government down. Fractional reserve banking, yeah, you have a point there. That's true. Do you make more money from TV than you do trading, Fred? No, my friend, because every dollar you give us for Trade Vision, we spend it on developers. We've got about 12 full-time developers now working. So the goal there is just to build value, like a really, really, really high value for the user. Now, in case you've written Apple off, because the last innovation that they made was changing the color of their phone slightly, a slight different shade and a slight different curve of the edges, they've just hooked up this deal with SpaceX and T-Mobile. T-Mobile is going to the moon on it this morning. New iPhones will automatically be able to use Starlink and automatically connect to satellites to make phones. You know what that means? It means you can use an iPhone anywhere in the world, even if there's no service. Is there service in Utah? Scott, was there service in Utah when you're biking on those trails in the mountains? Perhaps not, right? So that's pretty cool. And if Apple can get some sort of exclusivity period on that, and it won't be forever, but for a little period, that would generate some serious value because there are a lot of places in the world where mobile phone reception just sucks. And therefore, being able to use Starlink is pretty cool. Now, the next question will then be, will it be fast enough to run Wi-Fi off, right? Because then your phone could be your Wi-Fi device. That would be very, very cool. It means you wouldn't have to buy a Starlink device. You just pay for a Starlink subscription. So this could be pretty cool. Pretty cool. Spotty service in Southern Utah, says Make Schmidt there. Oh, John, okay, apologies. I apologize. I take it all back, John. You didn't mean to tease me in any way, shape, or form. It's just that particular sort of Germanic spelling with a K and an S is the way how I spell it. So I thought you were one of those people who was trying to needle me, which does happen. And it's all right. So apologies for, needling you in return, which is what happens when you needle me. Now, big tech earnings. Yeah, big tech earnings coming up. So who is reporting earnings? Let's just have a quick look at the earnings calendar because this is important. And we're going to look at the big boys here. LVMH numbers came in all right. Not amazing, but all right, by the way. And we have on Wednesday, today, after the market, Microsoft, Meta, and Tesla. And you might think that matters, right? So let's have a look at those in that order. Actually, let's start with Tesla. So if you go into Trade Vision and you type in Tesla, can we get dollar as well as percentage for price movement in Trade Vision? You mean when you hover over the charts like that? I literally asked for that yesterday. Is that what you mean? Because I'd quite like that. Is that what you're talking about? Or up here, percentage change, you also want the dollar amount. I think both are good ideas, by the way, my friend. But let me know which one you mean. So how do you know how much Tesla is going to move? Okay, the options market tells you this. So if you click here on the top and select the day closest to earnings, so in this case, 31st of January, then by the 31st of January, which is that tomorrow? Friday, the market is expecting Tesla to move. We put some lines on here. Hang on. You see this blue zone here, that one there, that's the expected move. So they're saying that the stock is going to be between this blue line and that blue line. Let me get rid of this one. So somewhere between up $40 or down $40. That's a fairly wide range, and it tells you that there is a fair amount of risk here involved in that, and the market doesn't know which direction it's going to go, and nobody does. But historically, earnings for Tesla are not always brilliant. Okay, the last one was pretty good, but the one before that we dumped. The one before that we did jump up quite nicely. The one before that we dumped. The one before that we crashed and burned. One before that we crashed and burned, and the one before that we crashed and burned. Why is that? Generally speaking, for car companies, and before you go nuts because I'm calling it a car company, at present, Tesla's revenue is derived from car sales mostly, right? And therefore the market still looks at it like that. And I totally get that's kind of a lot of nonsense, but that's the way the market looks at it. Therefore, we know how many cars they sold. We know approximately what price people paid. And therefore, we basically know what revenue is. And we basically know how much money they made. So it's really just a question of, did margin improve slightly up or down? And in this case, it's about guidance. Is he going to nail down on robo-taxis being on the road this year? Stuff like that. That's what we want to see, right? And or FSD being, street legal, like without you paying attention. Can you nap while it's driving you? That's really, I think, the deciding factor here, because then that will give us a very, very, very different valuation scheme for Tesla, because it becomes a recurring revenue service business that drives you around and no longer something that sells cars. You want a 95 Aerodrome, you want a watch list. Where do you want the watch list, my friend? You want it in here somewhere where you can go straight access it straight away. Is that what you mean? So at the moment, the way that works is you have your screener, and you can have my watch lists up here, right? Refreshed watch lists. Okay. So up here you have your watch list, right? You can create as many as you like, and then it'll show you, Felix's watch list or whatever, and then it'll show you those, and then you can click on those, and it'll open the chart for you. But very, very happy to see suggestions of where you think we should put that. Let me know. Are you a member of the 5 a.m. club? I don't know what that is, so I probably am not. What is 5 a.m.? At 5 a.m. I'm is sleep, usually with a cat sleeping on my head. Scott, agree with the watch list. Where do you want it, Scott? Jonathan, you too. Where would you like that? Max profit always shows 100%. Okay, I also have a fix for you on that one. So at the bottom right underneath my head, there is a little settings symbol for you. Let me just move myself up a little bit. You see this setting symbol there. You can click on that and you can see your profits either as a percentage of net credit debit or as a percentage of max loss. And that's really up to you. So if you have it as a percentage of max loss, then in this case, you see 100%. Because your profit is the same as your loss in this particular case. But if you did it as a percentage of net credit debit, then actually in this case it would still be 100%. But you get the idea. You can change it. You can do something to that, and then it would show you. In this case, it's 100. Yeah, it just shows you different percentages. Does that make sense, or is it a bug? Yeah, so this way it shows you 49%. It's your actual upside as a percentage of max loss, and then your max downside is obviously 100%. That's what I usually look at. I usually look at it as a percentage of max loss because that kind of makes more sense. But some people like to look at it as a percentage of net. So we give you both options. Standing up at 5 a.m. to optimize your day. No, I don't. I don't. You know, all this thing, people, all these people out there who say, oh, I became very, very successful because I got up at 5 in the morning. No, it's not. It's not. It's just that you probably worked pretty diligently, you developed a system and you knuckled down and you were consistent with it. And then now that you are successful and you've sold your business and you're retired and you are really bored, you develop these weird morning routines. And then when people ask you, why are you successful? You tell them it's because I get up at 5 in the morning and I drink, kiwi juice that was juiced by, 2 naked ladies at 3 a.m. at full moon. That is usually bollocks. That's not why people are successful. If you wake up at 5 in the morning, you're an insomniac and you should get help. You're probably overly stressed. So you should need to do something about that. I tend to wake up around, well, there's no alarm clock. So whenever I wake up, somewhere between 7 and 8 usually. It's usually a cat who wakes me up. Sometimes on Sunday, for example, I slept till 10:30. No, 2:30 actually. Yesterday I slept till 10 a.m. So it really is just varies. And no, there is no routine like that. I exercise, that's true, in the mornings. But I do that when I wake up, not at a particular time. It doesn't really make any money. Why can't I find Trade Vision in the App Store? It's not there yet, my friend. It'll come soon. We're in the final stages of releasing the mobile app. At the moment, it's a browser thing. Consistency is king, absolutely. That's really what it's all about. And dog gets me up at 6 every morning. Yeah, okay, that might do it. I thankfully have a really, really wonderful housekeeper who takes Winston out in the mornings because I find it a little tiring every morning. I enjoy taking him out, but not necessarily every single morning. I like to sleep. Cats are very good alarm clocks. They very are, especially when you have kittens. And I've got 2 kittens at the moment. The 4-hour work week changed my perspective. Yeah, I love the 4-hour work week. I think that book really changed my life. I read that probably when it came out. I don't know, when was that? 10, 15 years ago. And that's a hugely, hugely powerful book to read. Still is. Highly recommend it. Nothing to do with investing, but a lot to do with like how to run your life. And I started about 15 years ago, like outsourcing my life. And you would not believe how much of my life is outsourced. Like there is literally nothing repetitive in my life that I have to do. Nothing at all. And I'm a big, big, big believer in that. Like, I don't do anything that has to be done other than what I want to be done. So Microsoft here, huge movement also expected. Again, let me put in the blue lines for you so you get an idea of like how big that movement is expected to be. So if they beat, we could go up $25 or something like that, $24. And if they don't, we could go down $24. So pretty big move here, either to the top of the last July rally or sort of to the nearest the bottom of the range there. Who was the other one reporting? Was it Meta? It's Meta, yeah. And then markets just opened as well, so we can look at a little bit of what's going on out there. Peasants get up at 5 a.m. Markets don't open till 2:30 GMT, so stay in bed to sport. Yeah, I wouldn't have quite phrased it like that, but yeah, the working man unfortunately gets up very early and it's just tiring, right? He wants to do that, in all honesty. He wants to get up that early. Like Sleeping is one of the biggest luxuries. Good night's sleep is such a wonderful thing. Meta here, really, really flying up. If they do well today, $60 up. If they do badly today, $60 down. Big move again. So be very careful with these trades. Very, very careful. And Dan, thanks very much for describing that watch list thing there. I think that's a great idea. I will get that implemented, my friend. I think it'd be great to have it at the top of the screen somehow, where we could then, yeah, or maybe even on the right side, right? Like maybe even here. What do you think about that? But that, for the options traders, that might be annoying. But have a think where we could put that. There'd be an obvious space here on the right. But yeah, let me know where you want to put that. Exercise before bed, absolutely. Exercising is definitely the way to sleep well. Ramantas, appreciate you. Thank you very much. Best is high, clean, sober, and well rested. Yeah, I stopped drinking completely about 3-4 years ago. I haven't had a drink like literally for like probably 3 years plus. Tesla, well, it's just going sideways, isn't it? It kind of makes sense now before earnings that, you know, who's going to buy or sell a lot of Tesla today, and we're just about to get that big piece of data out. Kind of makes sense that that isn't really moving very well. So we'll look at some of our favorite tech stocks here as well. And if you guys want to learn how to actually read the patterns of the stock market here, and it's the same pattern again and again and again, the same rules about how we get in and out of stocks. In my humble opinion, you need to have somebody to teach you. Like I was lucky, I had somebody who taught me, but he had somebody who taught him, and he had somebody who taught him, and so on. And that's how the industry, Wall Street, teaches people. We retail investors are generally taught, just go figure it out on your own. And it's a very expensive way of learning, so I wouldn't recommend it. So if you have some interest in actually learning from the people that I learn from, learning from the people that I talk to, see all my trades, all my charts and everything else, then feel free to hop on a call with us, felixprehn.org/freedom. I also mentioned earlier, we actually have a trial sign up with a partnership with a firm, which means you could in theory get 0% financing on the coaching program, which could be good for some people who don't want to sell stocks or something, but still obviously have some level of portfolio they actually want to trade with, which is I think it could be quite a cool feature. So we're gonna do a trial there with like 50 applicants. So if you want to get in on that, book a call with us, felixprehn.org/freedom. It's completely free, zero pressure. You just ask us all the questions you ever wanted to ask, and you'll have some clarity afterwards, and it'll help you make better decision on like how do you actually become an amazing investor, an amazing trader. And it's much simpler than you think. It really is. It's just I do think it needs some guidance. I mean, that's really how it works. Top right. Okay. Okay, we'll try some stuff out. I'll talk to the design team today. We'll see. I think it's a very good idea. Can you alphabetize your watch list? You ask me tough questions. What's the order? You can sort it by everything but name, hey? Interesting. Okay, this is why I love you guys, because you give me ideas. Rob, thanks very much for that. And I take screenshots of these, and then I ping them over in our Slack to make sure the developers get on that, because that's obviously a very good idea. We could do that. I think there is actually a columns. There's a ticker column you could turn on. Is there? No, you can't. You move these around. Oh, okay, I think that's a great idea. It's a great reference. I appreciate you guys pointing that out there. Could you expand trade mission beyond US stocks, says Mark McClintock? You're thinking UK stocks, is that what you're thinking, Mark? That's also something we could look at. We have quite a lot of British users. For some reason, you lot watch this miserable German over here. Probably some of you don't realize I'm German, which is why the Brits tune in. Now they've all left the room, you see. Concurrent viewers just dropped by 500. news column, you want to customize it. We're working on making that better, by the way. UK and EU stocks. Okay, thanks very much. Can you look at SOFA? Yeah, we're looking at SOFA here right now. Like it's down 1%, but it's sort of neither here nor there, right? It's sort of like just moving sideways, completely sideways. Yesterday, we had a pretty low. I didn't love that, but it is a bullish candle in the sense that it was sort of the hammer candle, right? Can you see that? It looks like a hammer. Volume was not huge, but a decent day yesterday. Today, a little bit lower. I think there's a little bit of fear around what the Fed's going to say if Jay Powell comes in all kind of bullish and hawkish. That won't be good for SoFi. But look at the earnings. I mean, it's a little bit of faith in management for sure, because they're reinvesting more than the market expected, and that's always, you know, thing that comes with risk. Passive nomads. I sound more British than you, but you were in Liverpool. Sorry about that. I couldn't help myself. The Brits like your humor. Yeah, I think you kind of. I mean, you know, Germans obviously come with no sense of humor whatsoever. So you had some positive influence there on me, I would say. By the Fed cut, I don't think. Well, if we get a Fed cut, then it's to the moon. But I don't expect one today. I know some of the people, like I know, who are a bit more bullish, especially in the crypto space and so on, and they think, no, we're going to get a rate cut today. I don't see it. I don't see the need for it. There is, I think their concerns are tariffs. Maybe they don't understand how that works. And also deportation, right? The more illegal immigrants you deport, the tighter you make the labor market. That's just a reality. Now, people get very upset about deportations. Bill Clinton deported about 12 million people in his presidency. So I don't think Trump's going to achieve that number. But if he manages to get rid of a few million people, that would be pretty significant in terms of making the labor market tighter. That could cause inflation. So therefore, I think they're going to do absolutely nothing. Terrible impression. What is a Fed cut? It's taking the interest rates down. So it's the equivalent of your ECB, your European Central Bank, cutting interest rates. That's really what this is about. Deport Jerome Powell. I think that's a good idea, actually. Where would you send him to? Guatemala or somewhere? Actually, I think Guatemala is quite nice. You look like a knight who says, "Nee," says John. Where are you from? I'm from Hamburg. I was born in Hamburg originally. Drug labor market. Well, what do you mean by that? And Scott, I'm with you on that. I think we're not going to get a rate cut because of the clean out, as you call it. So far, 50-day moving average, that's a problem. We're above it. That's important. Yes, we want to definitely close above it. If we close below it, it becomes bad. Although this little bounce here was pretty good, right? We jumped up pretty quickly on increasing volume. So ideally, you want today's low higher than yesterday's and just sort of hover around that general area, and I think we're good. The trade we put on makes us money. Well, I say me. That particular trade makes us money anywhere above, where is it? $13, basically. So anywhere above $13, we make money. So as long as we stay above $13, I'm pretty good over here. Neil, you were in Hamburg last week and you loved the place. You were either polite or blind. No, it's not that bad. I agree. There are definitely some nice corners. Get yourself a bird. Well, I've got 4 cats. It's probably not a great idea, Marion, is it? Right. Could we look at KWEB? Must we? It's up 0.06%. So that's Chinese tech for you. So yeah, bit of a recovery, but zoom out, my friend. That's what I'm saying, right? Zoom out. So sideways action, no breakout. So I would not touch this at present. Didn't Trump demand rate cuts? He did, but he doesn't get to decide that. I mean, he can make all the noise he wants, but he doesn't get to decide that. The Fed is independent. They can do whatever they like. He can't sack the Fed president either. You call him names, throw things at him, but you can't actually sack him. Funnily enough, it is Trump who appointed Powell. People often forget that. Powell is a card-carrying Republican. Yeah, doesn't look like one, but he certainly is one. And once you realize that he's actually a former sort of private equity guy, it becomes a little bit clearer whose side he's on. But Nvidia here, yeah, it's it's down 3.2%. Not brilliant, not the sort of sharpish recovery we're hoping for. But again, watch for the lows. The low at present is much better than yesterday's low. That's quite important. But of course, we'd like it a little bit higher if we could. So we'll see. Yesterday was a pretty good day in terms of volume and bounce. Trump gets to decide in May 2026. Is that when Powell's term is up, is it? Barber talk, yeah, not for me. But do whatever you like, but definitely not for me. Hamburg is way too cold. It's horribly cold. So, any other questions, my friends? If not, have a chat with us. As I said, we just got this insane 0% financing on coaching, which I think can make sense for some people. If you are in debt, please don't call us. We will not be able to help you because you need some capital to make money with. But if you are in a position where you just didn't want to touch your capital to get mentoring, then this might be the moment for you to strike while the iron is hot. Monana is talking to me in German. I'll pretend that I understand that. Let's have a look at Palantir. I do, by the way. It is my mother tongue. Palantir here is basically banging its head against the resistance line. You see that here? So if you look on people often wonder, what does the resistance line do? Well, it's the point where market makers, those lovely buggers who work at places like Citadel, sell. So what happens is, like, during market hours, generally speaking, here's a nice example. Let me show you. Where did my pen go? Can you see how yesterday, there we hit that red line, the resistance line, and then look at the volume down below. Can you see how that volume is spiking? I'll magnify it for you. So here we hit that red line, and look at volume. What volume does? It spikes. Why is that? Because institutional investors have to sell Palantir at that point, and sell they did. And they did it successfully. Stock came back down, volume came back down to retail level. So it's very interesting and very useful to know those points. And today, we started the day by hitting that resistance line, right? Big volume. As we come down, volume's going to flatten out because those market makers stop selling. So we're not breaking through that $80 line because market makers say no, stop. So you need a little bit of extra volume to break through that level. And until we do that, $80 is still pretty amazing, isn't it, for Palantir? I mean, I don't think anybody's complaining about it, but that's kind of what's holding us back here right now. So very, very useful. And you get that data where? You get it in TradeVision, which is the software that we built here. And I honestly don't know anywhere else where you get that data. I don't know anywhere else where you get that data. Scott says, Goat Academy had a great session last night talking about what to do around Fed meetings and earnings. Coaches are a great help. Thank you very much, Scott. I'm very happy that you have that, you get that value, because that's of course the point, that when big things happen in the market, you've got calls on it with people who've done this for decades, and therefore you are much, much better informed, and we can go much, much deeper in a smaller group where people are actually all there learning, and they all have the same sort of base level than we can here on YouTube. So cool. If you're serious about learning and getting mentors, Felix and the Academy is a great place to get. Thanks very much, Scott. Scott, my friend, you know we have a referral program, right? You get 25% or something like that, right? Something like that. I can't remember how much that is actually, but we do get that. If you are not aware of that, Scott, please use it because you're a fantastic advert for us, because you're very kind. Jule is asking why I speak English so well in German. I went to school in England when I was 16. So that's where I learned English. And then I spent about 10 years there. And then since then, I've been sort of mostly in Hong Kong and kind of vagabonding around the world like I do a little bit. Is Starbucks going through a breakout? I thought Starbucks was going through a breakdown, generally speaking. I thought earnings were, I was going to say piss poor, but that would have been rude. But people expected them to be piss poor. So the market's kind of going, yeah, they're pretty terrible, but we kind of expect them to be pretty terrible. So is that a breakout? Depends on the volume, really, today, I would say. You know, taking out the recent highs, it's true. But yeah, I think Starbucks has got some potential issues, I feel. Oh dear, all the Germans have now popped up. You see, we shouldn't have done that. We should never have admitted that. You see, all the Germans are now writing in bloody German. Can't help them. And then the Swissies are here too. Alex, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. See what we've done to the audience? Ruined the whole thing full of Germans and Swissies. Reddit is on fire with Starbucks, is it? Okay, one of those things trending on Reddit. I mean, volume looks pretty strong today, up 5%, looks decent. I have fundamental issues with I think Starbucks at present, but yeah, I could see why you would argue that that's a breakout. Arguably, not the strongest in the world. It depends on how much volume you can muster up today. Oh dear, all the Germans are now here. We're going to have to close the channel, folks. It's all over. The Germans have officially invaded. What was the question? Just PayPal. Okay, which we have a trade on. And by the way, if you want to look at charts the way I do, just get yourself trade vision. You don't need me anymore, or the bloody Germans in the chat. That's looking pretty decent, I think. Look, I painted in this purple dotted thing here as sort of the general uptrend, which I think I've moved slightly. I think it was sort of there. And we're still kind of on that trend-ish. Earnings are out on the 4th. I think they're going to be good. Look at the last earnings; they took us from 58 to 70s, and then some. So I have a PayPal bullish trade open, a fairly sizable one, and I think we're gonna do quite well on that one. But time will tell. Seminare auf Deutsch, never going to happen, my friend. Never going to happen. Should we hold our positions despite the FOMC announcement? Look, you got to have risk management in place that's pretty much automated. If you are very, very close to your exit triggers, which you need to decide in advance, then it can make sense to do one or two things. Close the position, or you can hedge it. That'd be the other way of doing it, which is a little bit more complicated, but can also be super, super powerful. So I do both things sometimes. I said that. See what I did there? So it really depends on your rules and your setup and your structure. And I can't tell you that without knowing what you're doing and without knowing your portfolio and looking over your shoulder. You want somebody to look over your shoulder, you have a chat with us. Go to felixprehn.org/freedom and have a free chat with us to see if our style of mentoring might be for you, which is one-on-one mentoring, where we literally work with you directly. And the people who work with you are retired investment bankers, hedge fund managers, and so on. What's your student to instructor call ratio, says Tom? Well, on a one-on-one call, it's usually one-on-one, Tom. I mean, unless you bring the wife or a child, a son or a daughter with you, which is very, very welcome, by the way. But otherwise, it's one-on-one. We do group calls. Scott, how many people are on the group calls? That depends. I think 20, 30, 40 sometimes. It depends on the group calls. Depends on what it's about and how popular they are. But you can always hop on a one-on-one call. Liam, you did not see that coming. Yeah, so what are we going to do today? Well, I'm actually going to sit down now and do some trades, probably. I will, of course, share that with you guys in the mentoring community that we have. Why do I not share that on YouTube? I think a little knowledge is dangerous, seriously. People like to copy. I'm not a fan of that. I think it's important to learn how to fish rather than hand you the fish, because what if the fish is smelly? That sort of thing. So I love you for tuning in. I love you for wanting to learn. Have a chat with us if you like. felixprehn.org/freedom, and learn how we coach, how it works, and how we could potentially help you make 2025 your best year ever, and give you knowledge that you have for the rest of your life, and you can teach your children and your friends and everybody else, and join lovely people like Scott here. So there were about 40 there last night. Okay, cool. I mean, that's obviously a big one, Fed announcements. So, sort of classroom size. You can ask questions, and you can also always message the coaches afterwards. We have chat messages, DMs, or you could just say, hey, can we have a direct one-on-one call? You can just book a call directly as well. So thanks for tuning in, chaps, and the three ladies. And I wish you a tremendous day, and